on the ground there with the very latest for you.
Meanwhile, switching to politics, brand new Fox News polls show Donald Trump is ahead in 3 important battleground states. What the numbers mean? Straight ahead. Also, Donald Trump himself on the show.
Plus, he threw the American flag on the ground and stomped on it. Should this teacher keep his job? You'll hear from a student in that classroom. Rumor is it's the first day of fall today.
It is.
Thanks for spending
It's not
with
a
us.
rumor.
Mornings and fall better with friends.
Six o'clock in Charlotte. Let's get right to that Fox News alert. The National Guard rolling into Charlotte, North Carolina overnight as a second night of rioting turned violent, leaving 4 police officers hurt.
With children. I don't know what that was, but it came from the direction of the protesters. Now those are...
Oh, boy.
Rioters taking over the streets. They're looting. They're throwing fireworks. One person opening fire on another protester.
That's right. Leland Vittert is live in Charlotte with the latest. Good morning, Leland.
Good morning, Ainsley, Steve, and Pete. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Duke Energy, all saying they don't think it's safe for their employees to be in downtown Charlotte, saying anybody who's non-essential, stay home. That's how bad it is. Downtown Charlotte, major business center in America, filled with tear gas canisters. You can see the aftermath of last night. This is one of the many stores that was looted. In here, they wanted Red Bull and they wanted cigarettes, so they took the 5-finger discount. Police were badly outnumbered. 4 of them got injured, and now the cavalry is on its way. A state of emergency declared as the National Guard is now coming in. Last night started peaceful and then quickly got out of control as you had rioters there, pitched battles with the police, throwing bottles, throwing rocks, fireworks, those kinds of things. Finally, police moved out and made an arrest. It's important to remember what sparked all that, and that is the death of Keith Scott, who was a black man in his 40s who was shot by police. The social media narrative was this man was just holding a book, waiting for his son to come home from school, sitting in his car. Police say that's not what happened. They say there was a gun. They believe they have pictures and a witness to prove it.
Is there any doubt in your mind that there was a gun in the hand of Keith Lamont Scott and that a gun was recovered near him at the scene?
Absolutely no doubt whatsoever, no.
And just about 20 yards from where I'm standing is the Charlotte Hornets fan store. That was also looted. The most popular item, according to police, was Air Jordan sneakers that people took away from that store and cleaned it out, basically. And there's a lot of people now who are asking really what these riots are about. Is this about something about a man who was killed, about police, or simply an excuse to loot and cause mayhem in the city of Charlotte? Back to you all.
All right, Leland Vittert live in Charlotte. Now let's bring in David Webb, Fox News contributor, a radio talk show host. David, what's going on?
What's going on is a defined attack on the community right now. First thing we talked about off here, I said, look what they did. They moved the protest into what's called the uptown area of Charlotte, into an economic center, into a downtown area. It's about 10 to 15 minutes away from where the incident originally occurred, and they looted a Walmart. Something that's important to this, and we've seen this play before, these are not the protesters. Maybe there are still protesters out there, but now they're rioters. When you're blocking streets, throwing things at vehicles going by, looting stores, you're no longer protesting an issue, and the facts aren't known. This has gone beyond just a protest.
David, it used to be that black individuals were upset at white officers killing black people. But in this case, it's not really being talked about, but the black man that was killed by another black officer. So Megyn Kelly last night was asking some of the protesters, why are you out there on the streets? What's the reason for this now? Here's what one of them said.
Because I serve a purpose, sir. I serve a purpose. My father serves a purpose. My brother serves a purpose. I'm here because guess what? Whether I'm here, I'm in school, I'm in my car. You said, okay, a man got shot over here, right? So you basically saying, why would I put myself in dangerous way?
Exactly.
Right. Oh, but guess what? I could be at work, at school, in my car. I can still get shot by the police. I can get shot anywhere.
David, what's your reaction?
Okay, so very important to listen to what she said here. And it goes along with a belief by many, unfortunately, as a result of the lie of Black Lives Matter, that someone like her believes that at any time, anywhere, by the police, she could be shot. That is a dangerous, not undertone, but a dangerous tone within what's going on now. By the way, for Black Lives Matter and for the leftists and all the people that support this, it's about police shooting. So if it's a black man, it doesn't matter. They use police. If it's a white cop, they use white shooting, black, white cop. So it's no longer about race. It's more about that issue for them.
And David, I mean, we hear about facts and statistics, which are pesky things. Of course, the minority of people actually shot by cops this past year, only 23% of them were African Americans. In this case, the individual in the vehicle had a handgun, and that's been the black police chief has said that. Why did the facts get obscured so quickly? Why do they not seem to matter?
Well, the facts rarely matter when you have this instant reaction. You mobilize on social media. But when you have dishonest players in this, you have someone from the Nation of Islam on TV across the country yesterday talking to different networks about going to the economic centers. Remember what I said? They went to what's called the uptown area of Charlotte, to where the economic center is, where the arena is, where the higher end stores are. What are they doing? They're looting. So this is being led and pushed by people who don't care about solving the issue. They care about using it to inflame.
Sure. Also, we should point out that there's some question over whether or not there was a gun, because the cops have been emphatic in that first soundbite we ran. It was very clear. The police officer said the guy had a gun. The family says the guy was reading a book. And speaking of the family, somebody who has been identified as Keith Lamont Scott's brother was out last night, and he said this. Listen to this.
Just know that all white people are devils.
And make sure you air that one.
Air that.
Don't take that.
All white cops are devils and white people.
Racism is alive there.
Yeah, and rather than deal with the issues of a bad shoot, white or black, in the issue. Again, we don't have the video yet. We have corroborating evidence now being reported overnight by witnesses, according to the police. But again, waiting for this to develop, for the evidence to come out that we've talked about in all these incidents, that doesn't happen. The fact that, and remember that dangerous undertone, he's saying white people are the devil, white cops are bad. You're right, Ainsley. It was a black cop. But again, realize the narrative is no longer about white, black, and just race. It's anger, and it is a dangerous tone when people actually believe, like that young lady did, that they will be shot at work or anywhere by the police. That is something we have to root out of what's going on in this country.
It's so sad, because I think most of the country believes everyone does matter. Everyone does serve a purpose. That lady was screaming, I have a purpose, I have a purpose.
She's frustrated.
That everyone is God's child. That's how I look at everyone, that we need to come together as a country.
But that's not where she's operating
I know that. So what in the black community needs to be done? Where is a leader like Martin Luther King, who doesn't want looting and doesn't want violence? And where's the president? Why is the president being silent?
Okay, so I'll answer your first question and your second question. You asked me before the show started, who is that leader right now in the black community? I'm still thinking about it. Who is it that could step out there with the gravitas and go up and say, look, let's deal with this, not from a political issue, but from an issue in the community? The president, and I don't like every president to speak out on every incident, but the president has such gravitas with the black community that his silence is deafening, but it's not unexpected. Because in this case, he invites Black Lives Matter into the White House. He basically endorses this movement and doesn't deal with the issue. He's also someone who's gone out, whether it's Professor Gates or others, and said, while I don't have the facts in that case, the police acted stupidly. So he's got to define political or some form of agenda behind it. That's become more evident. Then you look at the two political candidates. Hillary Clinton's pandering, as the Democrats have always done in 50 years of doing this, to the black community. What have they gotten? What are their lives like? What are those people's lives like in this area in Charlotte? At least Donald Trump is going out and engaging them and saying, look, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to attack this from an economic point of view, an education point of view, helping someone build a foundation for a better life. That's an opportunity.
And that town hall is going to air tonight on Hannity. He interviewed about 500 black leaders to talk about this very issue.
Absolutely. And Charlotte, just quickly, do you see this escalating or de-escalating?
if they have a curfew in place and they enforce it. They did not enforce strong policing last night. If they do that, it may de-escalate. But I have a feeling that in Charlotte, which is also in North Carolina, where Moral Mondays is very active under Reverend Barber and others, and the NAACP and all these so-called black leaders, they're not black leaders, they're opportunists. In that case, they may try to keep this, they might try to gin this up further.
Also, apparently there is dash cam video that shows the man had a gun. If that were released, perhaps that would tamp down.
Yeah, and they're considering the legal aspects of that and the compelling interest of a community. I don't know where that falls. There are lawyers that need to explain that. But certainly if the corroborated evidence is there, then, to your point, where does it end?
Yeah, good. All right, David, thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
All right, it's 11 minutes after the top of the hour, and Heather's got the news.
I certainly do. Good morning to all of you. The Tulsa, Oklahoma police officer who shot and killed an unarmed black man is speaking out for the very first time. This as we learn that police found a vial of the drug PCP in his car. The lawyer for the officer, Betty Shelby, says that Terrence Crutcher refused to follow more than 24 police commands, claiming that she, the officer, was forced to fire the fatal shot when Crutcher stuck his arm through an open window. His family says that the windows of that car were closed. Tulsa police standing by the officer's story. More on that as we get it. At this hour, New Jersey and New York terror suspect is unconscious at the hospital. Ahmed Rahami's in critical but stable condition after he was shot during that dramatic shootout before he was arrested. And this comes as disturbing new evidence emerges in that terror investigation, including a chilling video. And take a look at some of these still pictures here of a bombing test run. You can see these scorch marks in Rahami's backyard. The FBI now wanting to question his wife, who's in Pakistan right now, to see what she knew, if anything. The FBI is also looking for two key players in that case. These are the two men who discovered one of those explosives in Chelsea, New York. Two of them removed the pressure cooker bomb and walked off with the duffel bag that it was in. The feds consider them to be witnesses, not suspects at this hour. Have some questions for them. And new overnight, a tragedy strikes when a nearly 20-year veteran firefighter is killed in a crash on his way to battle a raging wildfire. Ryan Osler and his fellow firefighter lost control of their water tanker truck, and it flipped over on a California highway, trapping Osler inside and killing him. He leaves behind a wife and 2 children. That other firefighter is hurt but is expected to be okay. Such a tragedy for those brothers there in California. We are praying for them this morning and wishing them the very best.
Heather, thank you very much.
You.
Also, we should point out on this Thursday, Pete's in for Brian. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be hanging out here, guys.
There's so much going on. I'm sorry we didn't welcome you in the beginning.
No kidding. We got a lot going down in North Carolina. Plus, in politics, brand new Fox News polls show Donald Trump is ahead in 3 important battleground states. What the numbers mean, straight ahead, we're live on the campaign trail. So stick around.
And a massive space station flying out of control, headed straight for the Earth. Where is it going to land? We'll talk about it straight ahead.
Get my hard hat.
Hard to believe we're just 47 days out from the presidential election, and the race is tighter than ever.
That is right. Brand new Fox News poll showing Donald Trump now leading in several key battleground states.
What is going on? Let's turn to the guy who, if it is Thursday, he must be in Pittsburgh. We're talking about Fox News senior national correspondent John Roberts. John.
Steve Ainsley, Peter, good morning to you. Yeah, you can bet that Donald Trump is going to be walking on air this morning. Take a look at these new Fox News polls that show him in the state of Ohio, where he spent all day yesterday with a 5-point lead over Hillary Clinton, 42-37. In North Carolina, where he spent the previous day, he enjoys a similar lead, 45-40. And in the state of Nevada, where he was trailing, he is now ahead 43-40. He's doing it on the strength of independents. He's got double the support among independents that Hillary Clinton does. Gary Johnson, by the way, also receiving a fair amount of support among independents. Both of them seem to have a pretty solid vote. About 90% of likely voters say that they are definitely going to vote for either one of those candidates, either Clinton or Trump. But here's why those numbers are so important for Trump, because here in Pennsylvania, where he appears this morning and this afternoon for a big rally, he trails Hillary Clinton by about 7 points. he can afford to lose Pennsylvania if he, with its 20 electoral votes, if he wins in North Carolina, Iowa, Nevada, and then also wins New Hampshire and Maine. That would make up for the difference. That could take him to 270. So Donald Trump continuing to take it to Hillary Clinton, particularly on the issue of terrorism, keeping that front and center, suggesting yesterday in a big rally that Hillary Clinton has just got her priorities all wrong when it comes to terrorism versus the American people. Listen to Trump.
She doesn't want to talk about Islamic terrorists. She calls the patriotic Americans who support our campaign, many of them cops and soldiers, deplorable and irredeemable. She won't use the same words to describe Islamic extremists.
Now, another issue that Donald Trump is going to be taking on today is energy. Speaking today at the Shale Insight Conference here in Pittsburgh. Of course, fracking, a big economic issue here in the state of Pennsylvania. He's throwing his full support behind it. We'll be contrasting his energy policy with Hillary Clinton's. One other thing that's out there, though, we have to see how this plays out, and this kind of dovetails in with everything that's going on in the inner cities. Is Donald Trump said yesterday on Hannity that he would support a nationwide stop and frisk program to try to reduce crime. It's very controversial in urban areas. Some Democratic black leaders have been speaking out against it, so we'll see how that plays out today. Ainsley, Steve, Pete.
All right, we've got him on in about 40 minutes. We'll ask him about it. Johnny, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Live from Pittsburgh.
Thanks.
That program was here in New York, and many people did think it was successful.
Stop and frisk? Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Can be.
But then things changed.
I know.
All right, coming up, Donald Trump slams Hillary Clinton over her deplorable comment.
In fact, Hillary Clinton talks tougher about my supporters than she does about Islamic terrorists, right?
So how is that message working with voters? The brand new dials coming up next.
And this photo is causing hysteria on social media. A father dragging his daughter around a store by her hair. Oh, did he go too far?
Got some quick international headlines for you right now on this Thursday, starting with the Fox News alert. A U.S. Marine pilot safe after ejecting from his fighter jet as it crashed into the ocean off the coast of the country of Japan. You can see right there. Crews with that map. Crews now searching for the jet near Okinawa to try to figure out what went wrong. And ISIS could be turning to chemical warfare to target our troops. A rocket with possible traces of mustard gas hitting a base housing U.S. and Iraqi troops near the city of Mosul. Initial tests for mustard gas came back mixed, so it's being sent off for more testing. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. And China's first space station is expected to come crashing down to Earth next year. Chinese officials say most parts of the Heavenly Palace lab will burn up while falling through our atmosphere, but no one knows exactly where the debris that lasts through the atmosphere is going to land. So look out, Ainsley.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Thanks, Steve. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton hitting the campaign trail hard this week as the candidates and President Obama take on terror. But what do the voters think about this? Lee Carter is a pollster and partner at Melansky & Partners, and she put it to the dial test, and she joins us now with those results. Hey, Lee.
Hey, great to see you.
Good to see you, too. All right, let's talk about what happened over the course of the last 4 days this week. Donald Trump, first we'll start with him, talking about extreme screening, anyone who wants to come into our country. Listen to this and then look at the dials, folks.
We want people to come into our country, but they have to come in legally through a process, and we need extreme screening. And this thug today, they think, came through Afghanistan. What kind of screening procedures were performed? They have to be good screening methods. They have to be methods that work. And unless we have those methods, sorry, folks, you can't come into the country. Sorry.
All right, Lee.
So you can just see that Republicans love this message. Independents are tracking right along with Republicans. Democrats gave this an F. They are just not willing to give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt. And it is just fascinating because when we're talking to voters, they're saying we want stronger security measures. We want to be safe. We want government to get involved in all of these things. And Democrats are just saying, you're too extreme, Donald. I think you're racial profiling. And that's what they're hearing from Donald Trump. And it's a total contrast to how they're hearing Hillary Clinton talking about the very same issue.
Yeah, here's Hillary. She now is saying she wants tough vetting. Listen to this.
Absolutely in favor of and have long been an advocate for tough vetting, for making sure that we don't let people into this country, and not just people who come here to settle, but we need a better visa system. Let's remember what happened on 9/11. These were not refugees who got into airplanes and attacked our city and our country. So let's not get diverted and distracted by the kind of campaign rhetoric we hear coming from the other side.
Many people are saying she sounds a lot like Donald Trump right now on that issue.
Absolutely. So you can see independents tracking with Democrats here. They gave it a B. Republicans just don't like Hillary as much. They gave it a C-. But the bottom line here is that Republicans said, wait a minute. She's saying that, which is criticizing Donald Trump. At the same time, she sounds exactly like him, talking about stronger screening, stronger security here at home. And independents, clearly this is a really powerful issue for them. They're tracking right along here and saying, you know what, Hillary, this is what we want to hear from you. But everybody said, we just want to see her more passionate about this. I think she's going with a cool, calm, collected, reserved Hillary Clinton, but it's just not necessarily getting that strength of support that you see for Donald Trump.
Okay, here's Donald Trump talking about how Hillary Clinton, in his opinion, is harsher on the deplorables than he is on terrorists.
Yet the President of the United States or my opponent, and both, won't even say the words radical Islamic terror. In fact, Hillary Clinton talks tougher about my supporters than she does about Islamic terrorists, right?
So you can see there, Republicans gave this an A, independents a B, Democrats gave this an F. The bottom line is this. People want strong measures against the terrorists. We're not the enemy here. Republicans and Democrats, not the enemy. We have a very clear enemy. It's not at home. This message resonates. People are tired of Hillary Clinton attacking not just Donald Trump, but the supporters of Donald Trump, calling them racist, bigots, all these horrible names. And people are just saying, you know what, Donald Trump, you're right. Let's focus the attention where it needs to be, and that's on the terrorists, not on each other.
Okay. Thanks so much, Lee. Great to see you this morning.
Anytime.
Where are you, by the way?
I'm in Philadelphia right now.
Okay.
Battleground State.
Got it. Have fun. Thank you. Coming up, they haven't exactly gotten along. This morning, a huge development between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. And have you seen this? It's a high school teacher stomping on the American flag. But before you judge, you need to stay tuned. Some say his lesson had a point. North Carolina under a state of emergency now as a second night of violence and chaos erupts in Charlotte.
4 police officers hurt last night as nearly 1,000 rioters took to the streets, throwing fireworks, looting stores, blocking traffic, kicking out windows, or all sorts of things. Leland Bittert has been live in Charlotte overnight as the National Guard rolls into the city. Leland, good morning.
Steve, Ainsley, Pete, good morning to you guys. A light rain now coming down, and there's some joggers out on the streets braving the rain that is kind of washing away the smell of tear gas here in downtown Charlotte. Still, there's a number of companies, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Duke Energy, the huge power company down here, all saying to their employees they don't think downtown Charlotte is safe because of what happened last night. Don't bother coming to work today. Take a look at one of the looted stores. Evidently, the rioters wanted Red Bull and cigarettes, and they took the 5-finger discount here. During those riots, 4 police officers injured, and now the cavalry is coming in. The National Guard coming in to try and restore order. We've also seen the North Carolina Highway Patrol and state troopers on the streets as well, with very different rules of engagement than what we saw last night from the Charlotte police. And the police really let things get out of hand between about 8 and 9:30 when one person was shot. He's in critical condition. He was actually shot by another protester. Take a listen to the chief of police describing the situation as it was happening.
We're trying to disperse the crowd. We've been very patient, but now they've become very aggressive, throwing bottles and so forth at my officers, so it's time for us now to restore order.
This is all kicked off in about 36 hours with the police shooting Keith Scott, a man in his 40s. He was shot by police. According to his family, Keith Scott just had a book in his hand. According to police and pictures that have been put out there, Keith Scott had a gun in his hand. And since race has become such a big issue in this story, important to note that Officer Brentley Vinson, the officer who shot Keith Scott, is black as well. Protesters, though, out here on the streets are saying that doesn't matter, and then they turn into rioters and they say, essentially, we don't really care who shot who. We just want an excuse to be angry out here. And you really, guys, have to put this into a political context. North Carolina, early voting state, big-time swing state, and now this violence on the streets. And you can imagine the dynamic that's creating both here in Charlotte with the African-American community and then also those outside of this city looking at what's happening here.
All right, Leland Vittert live in the streets in Charlotte. Thank you very much.
All right, Alveda King is sitting on the couch with us this morning. She's the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and a Fox News contributor, and in town to attend an event out on Staten Island to represent unborn children.
That is right. I'm Director of Civil Rights for the Unborn at Priest for Life, and we work about the civil rights from the womb to the tomb, the old, the sick, the elderly, the babies, the poor, the rich. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on to talk about this issue in Charlotte, because as we're seeing, I mean, Leland's down there on the ground, and, you know, it used to be, it was black people were upset at white cops killing black individuals. This is a black on black issue here now, and he's saying, he's asking people, then why are you protesting? And he says it's all about anger.
It is anger, and I believe, especially since I have so many friends in law enforcement of every ethnicity, and the heart of that officer is certainly going to be to protect the people, but also they have instructions, and so if it turns out that the officer was following procedure, then that's another thing. And so for the young man, I think you showed it in an earlier clip, who says all white people are devils. Well, no, and all black people are not angels. And so if you look at that and you see the anger, that's a matter of the heart, not the skin color. And so Uncle ML, Martin Luther King Jr., or Daddy AD would say Acts 17:26, of one blood, God made all people. So we actually can be brothers and sisters if we work on it.
Dr. King, you mentioned that soundbite. We have it so people know what you're talking about. Here is a man who has identified himself as Keith Lamont Scott's brother.
Okay.
Just know that all white people are devils.
And make sure you air that one.
Air that.
Don't take that.
All white cops are devils and white people.
Dr. King?
All white cops and all white people are not devils. All black people are not angels. We were remarking on the beauty of that city of Charlotte, and you've got people from every ethnicity who go to church and pray and go to work and go to school. And so their own peace is being disturbed, not by protesters, but by rioters. And there is definitely a difference. And that's why I'm asking that spiritual leaders come forth outside of the four walls of the church. Go to church. Please go to church. But there are 7 days in a week. And to come outside of those four walls and call for peace, for justice, but let it be righteous justice, not angry, I have to kill and loot justice.
And not just the leaders, though, also all of us who are spiritual individuals.
Well, this is true, because each in our own little network in Dominion territory, we have leadership potential. So spiritual leaders, come forth. Whether you are a big congregation, little congregation, you can lead in your own house.
Well, we see the frustration on the streets of Charlotte. You've got to figure the police officers are frustrated too. I mean, they're just trying to do their job, and in the last couple of years, you know, they're walking on eggshells because somebody's got a camera phone or something like that trying to tape them doing something that they'll show on TV, and next thing you know, they're out of work, they've lost their pension, their lives just
Well, right in Atlanta, Georgia, the police department responded to vandalism in my mother's senior citizens community, a gated community, and all ethnicities, they came and they responded and they re-secured that community. And so the law enforcement officers, you can have a bad apple in the barrel, take the apple out, but don't throw the barrel away. And that's the problem. And anger is a matter of the heart, not the color of our skin.
Sure. Doctor, thank you for your wisdom and for your faith. I think we need a lot of that right now.
Thank you.
All right, it is now 20 minutes before the top of the hour. We've got all sorts of news, and for that we turn now to Heather, who's got the headlines.
Yeah, I certainly do. We're starting in Washington, D.C. this morning, where the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, is blasting the Obama administration for coddling Iran. Listen to this.
Just mean. all of these concessions, cash infusions, and side deals. I don't just mean sending the Secretary of State out to chauffeur Iran like he's the president of the Tehran Chamber of Commerce. I don't just mean paying ransom for hostages.
Well, that criticism comes as lawmakers investigate a $1.7 billion cash payment to that country, $400 million of it paid on the very same day that Iran released our American hostages. Senior officials calling the cash, quote, leverage. They refuse to label it as ransom. Donald Trump and Ted Cruz not exactly best friends.
Stand and speak and vote your conscience. Vote for candidates up and down the ticket who you trust to defend our freedom and to be faithful to the Constitution.
Well, this morning, Cruz is now praising his former foe. He sent out this tweet saying, appreciate Donald Trump's support of our efforts to keep the internet free. Cruz still has yet to endorse the Republican nominee. Disturbing pictures this morning showing a man dragging his daughter by her hair, and that's sparking a whole lot of outrage online. You can see the large hand gripping the little girl's hair as he pushes a cart around a Walmart in Texas. A horrified woman took the pictures and then posted them on Facebook, and that has now prompted an investigation. Police are now questioning the father and working with child services. And those are your headlines. I'll see you back here in about 20 minutes, gang. Thanks.
That's terrible. Looks bad.
Yeah. Well, if I was caught for every moment, I handled the boys a little bit to get them in line. Who knows?
Did you drag one of your boys around the grocery store by the hair? There's got to be more to that story.
You can't do that, Dad.
There's got to be more to the story. Yeah. Heather, thank you very much. Meanwhile, have you seen this? That's a high school teacher stomping on the American flag. So did his lesson have a point, or was it totally out of line? That coming up.
Interesting. And the Chelsea bombing suspect unconscious at this hour. So what happens to the case if he doesn't wake up? Judge Napolitano on that. There he is, coming in next.
All rise, here comes the judge. At this hour, the accused New York and New Jersey bomber Ahmed Khan Rahimi is unconscious at a hospital in Newark following a shootout with police after a number of operations he had. So what happens to the case if he wouldn't wake up? Joining us right now is Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Well, he's conscious there as he's carted off to the hospital, and apparently he was out for a while after surgery.
Right.
So now what?
Well, look, if he doesn't wake up, there's no case. He'll stay in a coma or he'll die. He has already received his Miranda warnings. That's where the police say, you're in custody, you have a right to remain silent, you have a right to a lawyer. If you can't afford a lawyer, the government will pay one, and this will truly be your lawyer, even though we're paying for it. If you want to talk to us, you can talk to us. If you want to stop talking to us, you can stop. In New Jersey, that warning has to be given immediately, so he's already had it. He'll probably get it again as soon as he comes out of anesthesia.
In the New York Daily News this morning, it says that legal aid lawyers apparently have sent the letters to the appropriate authorities saying that this guy was grilled for 2 days without a court-appointed lawyer. Would that be a problem?
Yes, that would be a profound violation of New Jersey law and federal law. I hope... This is the first I've heard this, Steve.
It's in the Daily News this morning.
All right. Not a paper I often consult, but I...
Me neither.
Sorry. But I hope that that's untrue. If it is true, then any information obtained in that interrogation cannot be used against him or against anybody else, so the police know that.
Sure. You know, yesterday we were talking a bit about how the father went to the police and they went to the FBI 2 years ago and said, hey, by the way, my son's a terrorist. And then apparently the FBI looked into it a little bit and things went by the by.
I can tell you from my own experience with the FBI, there's a lot of interaction between state courts and federal courts with criminal involvement. The FBI has a strong dislike when state crimes are presented to them. They particularly hate things like domestic violence. They're not trained there.
And that's how this case was presented.
Right. This case came as a fight between two siblings. The father picked sides.
Tried to stab me.
Right. The father picked sides and said, by the way, not only does my kid need to be restrained because he tried to stab me, he's a terrorist. And then 2 hours later he said, well, I didn't really mean what I said. When the FBI hears that, they're saying, take that to the local police. Don't take it to us. So what did they do? They did what their protocol told them to do, which was not interrogate the boy, but run him through a database He didn't show up anywhere. So they said, forget about it. If you got a domestic violence problem, take it to the locals.
Interesting stuff. All right, Judge Napolitano, thank you very much for joining us live today. Prevalent case. All right. Coming up on this Thursday, we are just days away from the very first presidential debate. Send us your questions because Donald Trump is going to join us live in 12 minutes, and we'll ask him a couple of your questions. Plus, have you seen this? That's a high school teacher stomping on the American flag. So did he have a lesson point, or was it totally out of line? A student who was in the classroom is going to join us live next.
A meeting scheduled for today will determine whether a high school history teacher gets to keep his job after stomping on an American flag during a lesson on the First Amendment.
I put the flag on the ground and I take 2 steps with my right foot and I said, this is an example of freedom of speech. There could be other ways to teach this subject. But in the same vein, the way that I taught it can't necessarily be wrong.
Well, so was it wrong, or should the teacher get to keep his job? Alex Dunn is a student at Massey Hill Classical High School in North Carolina. He was there in the class for the lesson and took a photograph of the incident. Alex, thanks for joining us this morning. I'm sure you didn't expect to be on television when you stepped into class on Monday. Put us in the classroom that day. Were you shocked? What was your initial reaction when he pulled that flag out and stood on it?
When he stood on the flag, my initial reaction was shock, and I was in awe. I didn't want to believe it, and a lot of it was just heartbreak.
Heartbreak. I mean, and so you stood, he even mentioned a lighter and some scissors, right? I mean, was he open to lighting it on fire and cutting it possibly too?
I think he was hinting at that he could have done that. Of course, he couldn't have done that in school. But the fact that he stood on top of the flag took it to a whole other level.
Sure, I mean, a lot of people think he shouldn't be doing that in school as well. But you took action. You and another classmate did what in response to that?
One other classmate walked out, and after I took the pictures, I stood up, picked up the flag, and took the flag to the principal's office.
No, I mean, reminiscent of Rick Monday, a lot of people remember him in the outfield grabbing a flag from a protester trying to light it on fire. What did the other students in the class, how did they react? Did they think it was okay? Did they support you? What was the reaction?
I would say that the majority of the school, we all understand why he did it. We just don't think he should have taught it that way.
Sure, that makes sense. I mean, speaking of the school superintendent had this to say about this really stunt. Clearly, there are other ways to teach First Amendment rights without desecrating the flag. In your mind, I mean, there's some fears amongst parents here that our classrooms are not teaching patriotism or not reinforcing traditional values. Do you feel like, is it cool now to not like America? I mean, other students sort of say, hey, this is fine?
I think that it's becoming a norm to not be patriotic, and that's something that I honestly fear.
And why do you fear that?
Because a country that isn't patriotic about itself is ultimately doomed.
If you ultimately don't remember why that flag is worth fighting for and those who purchased your ability to stand on it, that does certainly become a problem. But I want to commend you. I know a lot of other people probably feel the same way. For taking a photo and standing up and taking an action and taking it to the principal, that's a big move. So kudos to you, and thank you for joining us. I hope things are ironed out there properly.
Thank you.
You got it. Wow. Courageous kid. Alex Dunn. Coming up, racial tensions boiling over in Charlotte.
Just know that all white people are devils.
And make sure you air that one.
Air that.
Don't take that.
All white cops are devils and white people.
Okay, more violence breaks out in the streets overnight. We are live on the ground. Plus, Donald Trump thinks we should bring back stop and frisk. Should we? Well, we're going to ask him. He joins us live straight ahead.
It's Thursday, September 22nd. I'm Ainsley Earhart. This is a Fox News alert, a state of emergency.
Parents with children. I don't know what that was, but it came from the direction of the protesters. Now, those are...
Riots and chaos down in Charlotte for the second straight night, and racial tensions are boiling over.
Just know that all white people are devils.
And you hear that one.
Hear that. Don't take that. All white cops are devils and white people.
One demonstrator shot, several more cops injured, and we have the breaking details.
Then, in the wake of the violence, Donald Trump says stop and frisk should go national for police officers. He's here live to tell us why in 2 minutes.
Plus, the first presidential debate just 4 days away. So what can we expect?
Who knows? If he's in a bad mood, he might come out here with a pie. All right?
More from Bill O'Reilly, because evenings are good with him and mornings are good with us. Stick with Fox and Friends.
Well, let's get right to that Fox News alert. A state of emergency in the state of North Carolina. The National Guard rolling into Charlotte right now as a second night of riots turn violent.
Last night, look at that. 4 police officers were hurt as nearly 1,000 rioters took to the streets, throwing fireworks, looting stores, and blocking traffic. At one point, those rioters tried to throw a reporter into a bonfire. Police intervening to save the man.
Well, good.
Wow.
But one protester is on life support this morning. Police say that he was shot by another civilian. All of this chaos unfolding after this black police officer, Brantley Vincent, shot and killed 43-year-old Keith Lamont Scott.
Now, police say they warned Scott to drop the gun that he had. His family says he didn't have a gun. He was not armed, and they're speaking out against the police.
Just know that all white people are devils.
And make sure you hear that one.
Hear that.
Don't take that.
All white cops are devils and white people.
Officer Vincent is now on administrative leave, so a lot of tensions and certainly a lot coming out of that incident.
Absolutely. All right. So that's what's going on down there. 2 minutes after the top of the hour, let's bring in Donald Trump. He's running for president of the United States. He's got a debate in a couple of nights, but he joins us live from somewhere in his empire. Good morning to you, Mr. Trump.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So as you look at what's happened overnight and happened the night before down in Charlotte, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's wow. Here we go again. It's very sad. When you look at what's going on, it's very sad. It's very divided, our country, and it's getting worse. So I'm not overly surprised to see it, but it's happening.
Why do you think it's getting worse?
It just seems that there's a lack of spirit between the white and the black. I mean, it's a terrible thing that we're witnessing. You're seeing it. Well, I'm seeing it, and you look at what went on last night in Charlotte, a great place, and you just see it. There's somewhat, and I see it even going out. There's such a lack of spirit. There's a lack of something. Something's going on that's bad, and what's going on between police and others is getting worse.
Mr. Trump, what would the message be of a President Trump to these rioters, to the anti-police protesters?
Well, it really has to be. You have to have law and order. At the same time, Pete, you have to have a certain spirit, a certain unity, and there's no unity. You look at the level of hatred, the rocks being thrown and everything happening. It's so sad to see, that this is the United States of America. I mean, it's so sad to see, but there's just no unity. There has to be a unity message somehow that has to get out. And it starts with leadership.
You know what, Mr. Trump, don't you think there needs to be a dialogue between the police and the community that they help keep the laws in? You can't just roll up when there's trouble. You got to have a dialogue with the folks every day.
Well, that's true, but if you look at Dallas, there was a dialogue. They prided themselves on dialogue, and they were constantly talking and meeting and having community groups, and that was a pretty rough situation, to put it mildly, a terrible, terrible situation. And so that sounds good, it sounds right, but there's something deeper than that.
I was glad to know that you had a dialogue with hundreds of African-American community leaders. You had that yesterday. It was supposed to air last night, and then for Hannity for the town hall. Hannity didn't end up airing that because he was live on his show for 2 hours last night, so it's going to air tonight. We're all looking forward to seeing that. But what was that dialogue like? Because it's important for, it's easy for us to say what we need to do as white individuals. We're sitting on this couch. But what does the black community want from the white community? How can we work together as a country?
Well, we went to Cleveland, and it was really beautiful. Pastor Darrell Scott, who's a great guy, and his church. And we had a tremendous group of people there. It was amazing. And that's right. It's going to be, I guess, on Hannity tonight. It was going to be last night,
yes,
but
sir.
Unfortunately, this preempted it. But we had an amazing couple of hours that we spent. And I'll tell you what, something can happen, and it can happen fast, and it can happen that's very good. But right now, it's not taking place. There was great love in that room yesterday, and you see pictures of it. You see it right now on the show. Mm-hmm. There was a tremendous feeling in that room. I mean, something can happen with the right leadership.
I know. I read a report that apparently there in that black church in Cleveland, you were asked what you would do about black-on-black crime, and you said maybe it's time to bring back stop and frisk.
Right.
And I saw that you sent out a tweet. Stop and frisk works. Instead of criticizing New York Police Chief Ray Kelly, New Yorkers should thank him for keeping New York safe. Why do you think stop and frisk would work?
Well, Ray Kelly did a great job, and New York was not in a Chicago situation, but it was really in trouble. It was in bad shape crime-wise, and with all of the shootings and everything. And Rudy Giuliani did a great job as mayor, and they really straightened things out with stop and frisk, and it was used further by the next mayor, Bloomberg, and now they just, recently, not so recently, but fairly recently, they stopped it. But stop and frisk worked. We had tremendous numbers of shootings. Now, Chicago is out of control, and I was really referring to Chicago with stop and frisk. They asked me about Chicago, and I was talking about stop and frisk for Chicago, and where you had 3,000 shootings so far this year, 3,000 from January 1st. And obviously, you can't let the system go the way it's going, but I suggested stop and frisk. And some people think that's a great idea, and some people probably don't like it. But when you have 3,000 people shot and so many people dying, I mean, it's worse than some of the places we're hearing about, like Afghanistan, the war-torn nations. I mean, it's more dangerous. So,
well, it does sound, Mr. Trump, like Chicago's going to add, I think I read 1,000 new police officers. So you got more cops on the street, but unless you give them the tools, what are they going to do?
Yeah, no, I think Chicago needs stop and frisk. Now, people can criticize me for that, or people can say whatever they want, but they asked me about Chicago, and I think stop and frisk with good, strong law and order. But you have to do something. It can't continue the way it's going.
Will you explain what that is to my folks down in South Carolina that don't really deal with stop and frisk? What exactly is it, and what are the pros and cons?
Well, there are different levels, and you have somebody coming up who's the expert on it. But basically, they will, if they see they're proactive, and if they see a person possibly with the gun, or they think may have a gun, they will see the person, and they'll look, and they'll take the gun away. They'll stop, they'll frisk, and they'll take the gun away. And they won't have anything to shoot with. I mean, how it's not being used in Chicago is, to be honest with you, it's quite unbelievable. And, the police, the local police, they know who has a gun, who shouldn't be having a gun. They understand that.
Sure. Stop and frisk, for the most part, is where you give cops more power to quiz passersby if there is reasonable suspicion.
That's right, absolutely. And in New York, it took them, the numbers were unbelievably changed. I don't mean just a little bit. It was, massively changed. And it became a safe city. It went from an unsafe city to a safe city.
That's right. Well, Mr. Trump, moving to politics a little bit, yesterday you must have been pleased to see a set of 3 new Fox News polls coming out of the battleground states of Nevada, North Carolina, and Ohio. We're going to put those numbers up on the screen for our viewers. In Nevada, you now lead Hillary Clinton 43-40. In North Carolina, your lead is at 45-40. And in Ohio, a key battleground state, holding at 42-37. Your reaction to what appears to be a very strong surge in these very important states?
Well, it's great. I mean, I feel really good about that. I just saw that last night, and I'm spending a lot of time in North Carolina, Ohio, and Nevada, and Florida, different places. We're doing well in Florida also, and really, really good. I think we're going to do well in New Hampshire. I think that's going to be really good. I was up there a lot, and we seem to, really resonate in New Hampshire. It's a great place. And so I think we're doing very well.
Yeah. Mr. Trump, coming up on Monday night on all the channels will be the first presidential debate. I know in the media they've been talking about whether or not the moderator, in this case Lester Holt, should he be a moderator and just ask questions, or should he be a fact checker where he asks a question and then if somebody says something that he thinks is wrong, then he's going to interrupt and try to correct the record. What would you like to see, a moderator or a fact checker?
Well, I think he has to be a moderator. I mean, you're debating somebody, and if she makes a mistake or if I make a mistake, we'll take each other on. But I certainly don't think you want Candy Crowley again. That was
she was wrong.
Well, and she turned out to be wrong. I really don't think you want that. That was a very pivotal moment in that debate, and it really threw the debate off, and it was unfair. So I don't think you want that. No, I think you have to have somebody that's just lets them argue it out. And, I think there's a lot of pressure on Lester. I think Lester's a very good person, a very good man. I think that there's a lot of pressure on him because of Matt Lauer. When I had the town hall, I guess you'd call it, or the forum last week with Hillary, it was, I did well, and I had tough questions, but the polls all had hers taking a drubbing in that one. Now, I will say they went after Matt Lauer. I've never seen anything like it, and I think my questions were harder than her questions, if you want to know the truth. And a lot of pressure is being put on Lester Holt, and it's Bobby Knight type pressure with the refs. Okay, Bobby Knight would go after the refs, and that's what they're doing with Lester Holt, which is, I think, very, very unfair. And a lot of people are watching to see whether or not he succumbs to that pressure.
Yeah.
There are two presidential debates. It's Chris Wallace and Lester Holt, right? Those are the last two.
Three in all.
The third one is the vice presidential.
Four.
Oh.
So we have three debates. We have three debates. Chris is doing the last debate.
Right. Who's doing the one in the middle?
Anderson Cooper, and you have Martha Raddatz.
There you go. All right, so we got plenty coming up. Mr. Trump's going to stick around through this commercial break, and he's actually going to answer any questions you've got about the debate ahead of Monday's showdown. You can email us, friends@foxnews.com, or tweet us, or go to our Facebook page.
Please do. And then more proof terror may be slipping through because of our current refugee policy. This morning, Texas, you can always count on Texas, is fighting back.
Well, on Monday night, Lester Holt gets to ask the questions of the presidential candidates. This morning, it's your turn. You get to ask Donald Trump some questions.
Hard to believe we are 4 days away from that debate. Paul on Twitter, Mr. Trump, wants to know, how do you plan to stay cool when Hillary personally attacks you in the debate?
Well, they've already spent like hundreds of millions of dollars attacking me, and I guess Madison Avenue said go after temperament, and I've always felt temperament was a good asset for me, maybe my best asset in many ways, and we know how to win, and the country has to win. And, this phony charge of temperament. And so we'll stay cool. I mean, we'll see what happens with her, and we'll see what's going on with her, because there's something going on that a lot of people are trying to figure out, and we're just going to see what it is. I'm going to be very respectful of her. I think she deserves that, and I'm going to be nice. And if she's respectful of me, that'll be nice. We'll have something I think that people will respect as a debate. But we'll see where it all goes. You really never know exactly how it's going to turn out, and that's why we're going to have a lot of people watching, almost as many people as are watching your show right now.
Almost, barely. No, the world will be watching that interaction, no doubt. Mr. Trump, Janine emailed in saying, how are you going to help the middle class with college education costs, and how will we benefit with you as president?
Well, we're going to do a lot on that. One of the questions I get asked the most, especially, obviously with the young people, is college and college costs and what's happening. The colleges are going through the roof. They're not watching their costs because of the fact that they're getting all of this money from the government indirectly used, with the students being used as a conduit to get it there. So they're not watching their costs, which is very unfair to the students. It's frankly very unfair to the country. You look at what's happening with college costs, how it's escalating, and we're going to do something to help the students, and we're working on a plan. We're probably announcing it in 2 weeks.
Well, we'll be watching for that. Matt is on Twitter this morning, Donald Trump. He says, do you expect congressional opposition? If so, how will you implement policy as an executive if you got trouble down the other end of Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania Avenue.
Well, you've had opposition for forever. The best combination was Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. They just sort of got things done. They liked each other. They had different views, but they got things done, and it was great. And I'd like to see if we could have that. And we will get it done. We're going to get it done. Right now, we have an executive order president. He just keeps signing he's given up on that process, by the way. He's given up on what you're supposed to do. So we have an executive order president. We will, I think you'll be amazed. Hopefully it'll all work out, and I think you'll watch, and I think you're going to be amazed at what gets passed through Congress, going the way it's supposed to go, and I think you're going to see a lot of great things happen.
You mentioned a moment ago how much the millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars being spent by Team Clinton. I saw an item this morning that said Hillary's team's going to spend 53 times as much as you are on ads in Florida between now and November 8th. So she's thinking the TV ads are going to help her side. But then yesterday, Mr. Trump, she said at one point on a teleconference, "Why aren't I ahead by 50 points by now?" Why isn't she ahead by 50 points by now?
Because she's terrible. I mean, she's had a terrible record, and everything she touches is bad. You look at what's going on with Libya, and you look at the surge, and you look at all of her decisions, and you look at the Iran deal, which is one of the dumbest deals I've ever seen, which she started. And she totally backs, by the way. I mean, in its completed form, she totally backs. You look at everything she touched. I mean, it's just a mess. And she's spending a lot of money, and so far it's not had much of an impact because I guess I'm winning in most of these states.